Our nation has come to a time for choosing, not between health and sickness, but between tyranny and liberty, authoritarianism and autonomy. So which way, America? It's time for Hold the Line.
My message couldn't be simpler. It's time to hunker down. It's time to cancel everything. And if it isn't essential, don't do it. Don't meet up with others outside your household. Don't host a gathering. Don't attend a gathering. And following our targeted safer at home order, if you're able to stay home, stay home.
It's time to cancel everything. You heard them say it, right? Welcome to Hold the Line. I'm Buck Sexton. That was Mayor Eric Garcetti announcing a new stay-at-home order for the city of Los Angeles. It's the city's most stringent lockdown order to date, stating, quote, all persons living within the city of Los Angeles are hereby ordered to remain in their homes. In case you were wondering, that's just a form of citywide house arrest. The order also requires businesses to stop all in-person operations, with a handful of exceptions, including gas stations and grocery stores, bars, restaurants, playgrounds, theaters, all closed, however. As many small business owners will likely tell you, that's ruinous, absolutely ruinous for them. The order continues. All public and private gatherings of any number of people from more than one household are prohibited. He wasn't kidding when he said he was going to cancel a lot of stuff. It's not a suggestion. It's now official policy in LA County. Friends, it is a time for choosing. Let's be very clear about this. Los Angeles was a place that was held up as a success story in the fight against COVID. You'll remember that. Same thing with New York City. And what did the Democrat politicians in charge of those two places say was the result, or was the reason for the downward flow of cases? Masking, lockdowns, social distancing. What they did, what they made us do, was the great success story. That's what they told us. And we've been doing those things, continuing to mask, continue to social distance, living with all these rules and regulations for months now. And yet, they don't ever stop to think maybe what they've been telling us we have to do as a policy does not work. They're certainly not interested in finding out about the downsides of this, the problems that come from lockdowns, the losses that people incur as a result of it. The cities have shown no ability to control COVID-19 at this point. We are at the mercy of a virus. As individuals, we can take precautions, we can try to stay as healthy as we can, limit our risks. The government cannot protect you from this. That much should be clear. Lockdowns do not flatten the curve. That much should also be obvious at this point. It doesn't happen the way they say that it will. But what you certainly get with these closures, what you get with these policies, is the economic devastation. You have businesses that might be able to survive that don't, because they're not allowed to, because they're told by people in charge, sorry, you're not essential. Here's an activist at a rally that happened last night in Staten Island. I was speaking to people at the rally as it happened. It's right here in New York City where I'm doing this show. And here's what he was saying about what's going on with closures under lockdown orders in Staten Island. Play it.
This is a battle, people. I've been warning you, and finally you're out here. You business owners, I see your faces, how f***ing fed up you are. Yeah! You can go to Home Goods and buy a porcelain bunny for your f***ing mantle, but these guys can't sell a hamburger and a beer.
Keep in mind, when we talk about lockdown, even when they say cancel everything, in California right now, in Los Angeles, Garcetti says that podcasting is considered an essential activity. Hollywood stuff, they have a pass, because that's really important. But if you own a small business, if you run a store, sorry, you might just have to go bankrupt. That's what lockdown actually means. It's picking and choosing. It's not for everyone. And it's certainly not for the elites who pass the rules. The hypocrisy keeps compounding atop itself as we go through this. The mayor of Austin, Texas, flying down to Cabo on a private jet with 8 people, while he's telling the people of his city, back in Texas, back in the United States, because he was in Mexico, that they should stay in their homes. Don't go anywhere, don't travel. How much more of that do you have to see before you realize what a bunch of frauds these people are? It's not just in the major cities either. In central Michigan, a business owner came forward during a live news broadcast to give voice to the frustration that people are feeling in these states where we've all been obeying these mandates. We've been masking, we've been shutting down our businesses. For what benefit? We know what the drawbacks are. Here he is talking about how, this is Dave Morris, a restaurant owner in central Michigan, saying, the leadership class has just left us, abandoned us. Play it.
My government leaders have abandoned me.
Are you the owner?
$4 trillion of stimulus money. They gave it to who? Special interest groups and campaign donors. I'm Dave Morris. I own the place.
So what's going on?
What's going on? You know what's going on.
Tell me. You tell me.
Hey, we got a government that has taken the stimulus money. They gave it to special campaign donors. They gave it to special interests. They abandoned me, and they have put me in a position where I have to fight back. Okay?
So do you feel that this is the right thing to do?
Absolutely. I feel everybody needs to stand up.
Everybody needs to stand up. And everybody needs to think for themselves and tend to their own health and their families. The cities cannot control this. The Democrat politicians that are writing books on leadership and giving bombastic speeches about how, yes, because you listen to me, we flatten the curve. Lies. It's just not true. And we're running an experiment right now in what else could be possible. If you match up Florida and New York, you have Governor Ron DeSantis, who is a Republican in Florida. Yes, this has become very political, unfortunately. And you have a Governor Cuomo in New York. New York has the worst death rate of any state per capita in the country. The only possible exception, maybe New Jersey. They're right next to each other. Both Democrat states, Governor Murphy in New Jersey. Ron DeSantis, however, has a state where there's no mask mandates, businesses are open, schools are open, and the caseload is right in line with New York. So what benefit does New York get from the shutdowns? What benefit does New York have from saying your business can open, your business must stay closed? This school will open this week, it'll be closed next week. How much more tyranny do you want to stomach for no change in caseload, New York? That's the question. Here's Ron DeSantis explaining why the lockdowns don't work.
A lot of these lockdowns have been very ineffective. They have huge negative consequences. And my view is that everybody's essential. Who is government to say that your job is not essential? I think it is essential. I think some of the stuff in March and April didn't work. I think you have to let people earn a living. And it's really not even government's role to say who could pick and choose. So we want everyone to have gainful employment. We want businesses to be able to operate. And I think that that's a better approach.
At least one governor holding the line for sanity. All right, there is some light at the end of the tunnel as multiple vaccines await emergency use authorization from the FDA. It's going to come very soon. After the break, we'll talk to Special Assistant to the President and White House Deputy Press Secretary Brian Morgenstern about the planned rollout. My friends, our constitutional republic has rarely faced the perils we do today. Mob rule, a push for socialism, violence, suppression of freedoms. Edmund Burke said it best, all it takes for evil to prevail is for good people to do nothing. If you want to help preserve America right now, while we still can, join AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, the fastest growing conservative group in America. Joining AMAC gives you access to money-saving benefits, cutting-edge news, and a great bi-monthly magazine. But more importantly, AMAC fights for you. A socialist storm is brewing. If you care about our future like I do, then join AMAC today. Over 2 million constitutional conservatives like you and me have already joined AMAC. Stand with us by joining right now. Just go to amac.us/buck. That's amac.us/buck. The benefits of AMAC are great, but the cause is even greater. Join today at amac.us/buck.
The United Kingdom has granted authorization to the Pfizer vaccine. While the FDA completes its review, the approval of another independent regulatory body should give Americans additional confidence in the quality of such a vaccine.
Secretary of Health and Human Services Alex Azar during a briefing with senior officials on Operation Warp Speed and COVID-19 vaccines. FDA officials are scheduled to meet to review the Pfizer vaccine next week and the following week to review Moderna's. Barring unforeseen delays, the government expects to begin making its first shipments of vaccines this month, with enough shipments to inoculate 20 million Americans by the end of the year. For more, we turn to Special Assistant to the President and White House Deputy Press Secretary Brian Morgenstern. Brian, good to see you.
You too, Buck. Great to be with you.
Let's start with some good news, because I think we could all use some good news right now. What is the latest status on how quickly and in what kinds of numbers this vaccine, the first round of vaccine, can get out to first responders and at-risk seniors?
Well, Buck, first, thanks for having me. Great to be with you. And it is great to talk about good news, because this is nothing short of miraculous. Operation Warp Speed is going to save millions of lives. And you just saw what Secretary Azar had to say. You just reported to your audience that the process is moving very expeditiously towards approval. And what we're looking at, General Perna, who is the great general in charge of logistics, has committed that we'll be able to ship vaccines within 24 hours of FDA authorization. And we've heard from HHS that we're looking at anywhere from 3 to 6 million doses per week on average on a weekly basis. We're hoping for the higher end of that for the earlier weeks. And so we'll get up to about 20 million doses in December, and we want those shots to be in the arms of America's most vulnerable citizens and healthcare workers who are treating them. And we don't want that risk of transmission among the vulnerable population by the healthcare workers, of course. So that's a very important point. So we're looking at 20 million doses in December, 3 to 6 million every week. And then Moncef Slaoui, the great doctor, the chief medical advisor for Operation Warp Speed, has talked about 40 million doses, 20 million people in December, another 30 million people, 60 million doses in January, and then we're talking about 100 million plus in February and beyond. So every American we expect to have a vaccine available to them in Q1, likely end of Q1 of 2021, and that's really nothing short of a miracle. Shows American ingenuity at its best.
Brian, I know because you're in this White House, you're obviously in constant contact with the folks running Operation Warp Speed and handling this at the top level. So just put it in perspective for everybody. For a new virus to get to, for a new virus to come up and then for us to get to a vaccine in this timeline, is it fair to say that this is unprecedented in modern science?
Absolutely. I think the next fastest was in the 4 to 5 year range, if my memory serves, which means we are, I think, at least 5 times faster in this effort than any other similar effort in history. And it's because we've really attacked this with an innovative approach, a number of different things that we've done here. Number one, we've created a portfolio of vaccines with 4 different technology platforms to maximize the probability. Number two, we've invested in parallel manufacturing of these doses, millions of doses being manufactured in parallel with the clinical trials, rather than waiting until the end. We're doing it on an industrial scale. We're doing it with numerous companies who are really state-of-the-art companies. And of course, we have the head of logistics, General Perna, partnered with maybe the world's foremost vaccine expert, Moncef Slaoui, all working on this. It's a mobilization of the federal government, numerous agencies, the private sector, the scientific community, and the United States military, all working together to get this done. As I said, about 5 times faster than any other similar effort in the history of the world.
Now, Brian, there are some asking questions about how it's possible that our friends in the United Kingdom have already approved the same vaccine. Is that correct? And why would they be able to move faster on an approval than we do?
Well, number one, they're benefiting from the robust clinical trials that have been done here in the United States, 5 or 6 times the size of a particular clinical trial. We're very proud of that. But two, they do not have quite as rigorous a review process. They have a very good process. It should give Americans a lot of confidence, as Secretary Azar has stated. But the FDA, we're very proud of this, is the gold standard of review for the world. They look under the hood. They look at the raw data. They have numerous teams that look at separate parts of the data to verify the trials, the thoroughness of the trials, the quality control on the manufacturing. They really go into every single detail to ensure that this will be safe and efficacious, that it will prevent the virus, that we're not going to see serious health incidents and side effects, things like that. So it's really the FDA gold standard that's making it take a little bit longer, but this is a standard that really the entire world looks to, and we're very proud of that we're going to give the American people ultimate confidence that what is distributed to them is safe.
Dr. Fauci, chief of the National Institute for Allergies and Infectious Disease, said this about that effectiveness question. Play it.
From the time the virus was recognized in January of 2020 to the time we're putting it in a person's arm in December of 2020 is extraordinary, unprecedented, and quite frankly, Governor, unexpected. You know, even with my cautious optimism that I live by, I didn't think that we were going to have a 95% effective vaccine.
Not just the speed, the efficacy of this. Can you speak to that, Brian? I mean, is that factoring into how the White House thinks this is going to be able to reinstate the lives of American people, you know, to give us back some freedom and normalcy much more rapidly in 2021?
Absolutely. And I would give the great Dr. Fauci a little good-natured ribbing in that, you know, he was cautiously optimistic, but always saying that his sort of expectation at the beginning of this process was, you know, maybe we'd be looking at more like 18 months. But President Trump was never going to accept, you know, just sort of the consensus expectations. He thinks outside the box. He comes up with more innovative approaches to speed up the timeline. And so here we are. We've really exceeded those expectations. But with the 95% efficacy, look, we were the FDA had put out guidance early in this process that if we had, say, a 50% efficacy, that would really be something that they'd be interested in authorizing. For the flu shot that we are all familiar with, there are some years where it's 29, 30%, sometimes it's 40% efficacy. It's still, because it's generally safe, we still think that's, you know, worth authorizing. Not we, but the FDA believes that's worth authorizing. Here we're talking about 94, 95%. This is outstanding. This is really exceeding expectations, and it should make the American people very proud that this effort is going to get us back to normal very, very soon. And Buck, you know, we talked about the 20 million people getting vaccinated, the frontline workers, the most vulnerable among us. This is going to dramatically reduce the risk of death of this virus in the coming weeks and next month. And that really should give people some confidence that as we move into the spring, I think we'll get closer to, you know, life back to normal. And that's a really great thing we should all look forward to.
Brian, before we let you get back to things at the White House, just need to ask you, COVID infections are very high around the country right now. This is great news about the vaccine, but we do have some tough weeks ahead. Does the president remain committed to no lockdowns?
Yes, no lockdowns. Of course, mitigation measures, social distancing, mask wearing, hand washing. We want the American people to be smart. We do want to help control things as much as we can to prevent hospital overcrowding. We are in constant contact with state and local authorities and with public health officials, really in all of these states, but in particular in states that are seeing higher numbers of cases, so that we'll have the capacity, we'll have the personnel, we'll have the treatments, the life-saving treatments to really make sure that we are prepared. In the meantime, be vigilant, be safe, but locking down the economy has all sorts of other adverse effects. We need to get kids back in school. We know, and Dr. Fauci has said that, basically Trump was right when he was saying that in the summer. We have to get kids back in school because the risks of the virus are low. The risks of keeping kids out of school are very high. We don't want depression to spike, drug abuse, all these other unreported child abuse, you know, all of the other collateral damage caused by lockdowns, very bad. But we also have to be vigilant about the risks of the virus. So we just have to go into this clear-eyed and advise the American people appropriately to be safe, be smart, and we're going to get through this very soon.
From the White House, Brian Morgenstern. Brian, good to see you.
You too, Buck. Thanks for having me.
Media outlets are panning the president's address on widespread voter fraud. Of course, they're saying the allegations are baseless. We've got more on this with First TV contributor Madison Jeziato right after the break. I'm a big-time coffee drinker, and Black Rifle is the coffee I'm drinking every day. Black Rifle Coffee was founded by a veteran who serves premium coffee to people who love America. That veteran is a CEO and a founder, Evan Hafer. He spent over 7 years on the ground overseas with the U.S. Special Forces. Evan even modified his gun trucks during the invasion of Iraq to grind coffee anywhere. For him, coffee's more than a business. It's his true passion. Through coffee, Evan was able to experience that perfect morning every morning, whether he was in Kabul or Seattle or anywhere. There's nothing better than starting your day with America's coffee. Go to blackriflecoffee.com/buck today and check out the best coffee in America. America's Coffee makes your holiday shopping easy with personalized bundles, gifted subscriptions to the Coffee Club, gift cards, and a whole lot of premium coffee, apparel, and gear. Make your holidays better with Black Rifle Coffee. That's blackriflecoffee.com/buck to get you 20% off coffee, apparel, and gear, as well as 20% off your first month of the Coffee Club.
This may be the most important speech I've ever made. I want to provide an update on our ongoing efforts to expose the tremendous voter fraud and irregularities which took place during the ridiculously long November 3rd elections. These irregularities are inexplicable unless there is a deliberate effort to accept ineligible ballots or fraudulent ballots.
President Trump posted a 46-minute-long speech last night on social media where he outlined numerous claims of what he called tremendous voter fraud. To no surprise, Facebook and Twitter were quick to place warnings on what Trump called the most important speech he'd ever make. While mainstream media took the bait and ran with it, look at some of the headlines for the past 24 hours. Donald Trump releases video statement repeating baseless vote fraud claims. Quote, in video, Trump spreads baseless claims about vote. Oh, you get the idea. Trump rehashes baseless election claim in 46-minute video from the White House. Trump escalates baseless, more and more and more. The list goes on. All about the baseless fraud accusations. You see it all there on the screen. Clearly, our media elites all got the same memo to use that buzzword baseless. Let's bring in attorney and contributor here to the first, Madison Gesiato. Madison, Trump's claims, are they baseless? Let's just start with this. Are they without evidence? Because I was somebody just from watching Law and Order who was of the mind that a sworn affidavit is considered evidence.
Right, and you see in multiple instances and in multiple cases in states across the country that there is evidence that voter fraud did in fact occur. Now, whether or not the election is overturned remains to be seen. However, you can't argue that there wasn't evidence, that there was not votes counted that should not have been counted. You continue to see irregularities, incompetence, unlawful vote counting in many states. Not only do we have affidavits, that there was 545 sworn affidavits in 5 of the most critical states and over 14,000 incident reports filed. And it's pretty hypocritical to see many people, not only in the media, but politicians and people, writing articles or tweeting out online, these same people, of course, very concerned about voter fraud in 2016, talking about voter fraud for the past 20 years, and all of a sudden voter fraud isn't a concern to them. It should be a concern to all of us, because whether or not it benefits you this time will not be the same next time. And we don't want to see, our country go down and become like many other countries across the world where elections have no integrity at all.
There was a lot of misrepresentation, Madison, a lot of misrepresentation of what the Attorney General said. He said the following: to date, we have seen no fraud on a scale that could have affected a different outcome in the election. All the Attorney General is stating here is that they haven't seen enough to flip the election, but this keeps getting reported as there is no fraud at all. Does the media at this point, do they just feel like they have no credibility to protect, so it doesn't make any difference? What do you think's going on here?
I'm honestly shocked. I mean, we look back even to 2016 and we saw that negative media coverage with Media Research Center coming out saying 91% of broadcast media coverage of the president was negative. Well, that's now been updated to say that it's actually 95%, just a short, less than 4 years later. It's really quite appalling. There's really no integrity left in the mainstream media. I mean, you turn on even Fox News sometimes nowadays that many people trusted a lot more than CNN, and you see completely fake news stories and coverage being put out about the president, about what's going on. And again, you don't have to like the president You can vote for him, not vote for him, hate him, love him, nobody cares, but we want to turn on the news and we want to hear real stories, and we're not seeing that anymore. And obviously it's why a lot of people are turning to alternative media sources. But at the same time, it's simply not enough, because there are still a lot of people getting their stories from CNN, getting their information from these mainstream media networks that are providing false coverage. And so they're going to move on today, tomorrow, and next week and actually think that these stories are true, whether it comes, to the story you mentioned about Attorney General Barr, or New York Times puts out a headline just a few days ago saying Times called officials in every state, no evidence of voter fraud. Well, we have the Department of Justice, we have an FBI, we have cases and lawsuits going on across the country, and that's obviously not true. But the New York Times seems to think that they're the ultimate decision makers on this, and they're very misleading, and many others are as well. So I'm very disappointed, not surprised, but disappointed that it's come even farther than it had 3-4 years ago when we were complaining about how bad the coverage was.
Yesterday, White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany tried to set the record straight. Madison, I want to have you react to what she told the country. Play it.
Some media outlets have incorrectly reported that the department has concluded its investigation of election fraud and announced an affirmative finding of no fraud, and that is not what the AP reported nor what the AG stated. I think a lot of the media didn't read beyond that one comment to the civil part versus the criminal part.
Well, I think maybe the discrepancy is, you have members of the Trump campaign coming forward and saying that there is hard evidence of widespread voter fraud enough to overturn the outcome of the election, and then you have the nation's top law enforcement officer, the Attorney General, saying if there is, he hasn't seen it.
Well, the Attorney General was speaking to what has come before his desk. And again, I'd point you to the campaign for specific questions on this, but I would just say generally they are pursuing civil litigation, which in fact the Attorney General explicitly said some of this is meant more for civil litigation, which is what the campaign is currently pursuing.
Madison, based on what you've seen so far in these presentations, what are your thoughts on the litigation that's ongoing here from the Trump legal team? Do you think that they're on it and they're going to get the answers we need?
I sure hope so. I mean, this is going to be a tough month to continue to push through this and to present not only this information to the courts, but to ultimately get the accurate information that is presented to the courts, ultimately presented to the American public. You see these questions going, against Kayleigh McEnany, in which they're very biased. And it's sad to see, because, again, she's there to provide information from the White House, and they're just there to play games and do gotcha questions. And again, you mentioned the AG Barr statement, very misleading, the coverage of that. And of course, there are many witnesses who have signed affidavits who have not been interviewed yet by the Department of Justice. So we're awaiting many of those people hopefully to be interviewed to get some more information. And there is quite a bit of confusion, as Kayleigh mentions, about civil versus criminal litigation and charges, and many people don't understand that. And so making sure we start to get people to understand, what the process is, and that's going to be difficult, but, continuing throughout the next month.
Madison Gesiato, good to see you, Madison. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Buck.
Let's look at the data. Let's actually look at the facts as they can be presented at this point in all these fights over vote counts and who really won this election. Up next, we'll talk to the founder of the Voter Integrity Project, Matt Braynard, who will sort through those details for us.
As you know, from the very beginning, the mail-in ballots were a source of some degree of skepticism, if not a lot of skepticism, as being innately prone to fraud.
President Trump's legal team sticking to their claims of widespread voter fraud and irregularities in the 2020 election. And now, with the help of an outside group, the FBI is in possession of hard evidence that can potentially overturn the election results. The Voter Integrity Project surveyed tens of thousands of voters in battleground states, many of whom said they never requested nor received mail-in ballots that were ultimately cast in their name. So what does this mean in Trump's fight for the White House? Let's bring in the man who compiled the data, Matt Braynard. He was President Trump's former data strategist, and he's the founder of the Voter Integrity Project. Matt, great to see you.
Thanks for having me, Buck.
Matt, I want to get into your analysis and crunching all the numbers as you presented it earlier this week for Arizona and for Michigan. But I first want to ask you about something that's going on today with the presentation by the legal team in Georgia. Jenna Ellis, who's one of the president's lawyers on the team, tweeted out that the video evidence being shown in the Georgia Senate hearing is shocking. The room cleared at 10:30 p.m. 4 people stay behind. Thousands of ballots pulled from under a table, in suitcases and scanned fraud, she writes, with big caps and in all letters. Very, very kind of Trumpian conclusion to the tweet there. And we can show people that we actually have, let's play the clip of it and then we'll have Matt react to it.
So now they're going to start pulling these ballots out from under this table. This table, the black one, was placed there by the lady with the blonde braids at about 8:22 a.m. in the morning. So she put that table there. So the same person who's staying behind now, the same person who cleared the place out under the pretense that we're going to stop counting, is the person who put the table there at 8:22 in the morning. Yeah, I saw 4 suitcases come out from underneath the table. Yeah, upper right hand, you see the gentleman in the red. So he just pulled one out.
Now that's not exactly confidence inspiring, Matt, when you see suitcases at a ballot counting place come out from under a table like that. There may be some explanation, I haven't heard one yet, but I want you to react to that, but also tell us, what have you seen based on the data and the numbers in Georgia, because that's in the center of the storm right now?
Well, what has to happen next is whoever those people were in the video that were moving those suitcases around, they need to be brought in and under oath explain what happened, because I've been involved with many election day operations, observing them, doing poll watching, and there may be a legitimate explanation to it. But in the absence of that explanation, the speculation is allowed to run wild, and it does look like those are ballots being moved around. Not really sure where they came from. So they must absolutely get somebody under oath who was in that room to say, well, look, these were just absentee ballots from this precinct. They were over there for this reason, et cetera, and give an answer, because the lack of the answer is a big problem.
What are you seeing in Georgia, though, based on what the Voter Integrity Project is doing? What are the problems that you've identified?
Well, the problem I've identified in Georgia is that I believe there are more illegal ballots cast in the state than the margin of victory for Joe Biden.
It's a big problem.
I believe I've identified around over 21,000 illegal ballots cast in the state. And I actually, 2 days ago, I signed an affidavit at night that was dropped into a lawsuit. That affidavit and exhibits are about 500 pages long. The reason the affidavit is so long is because it has the name, voter ID number, date of birth, street address, etc., of every person in whose name we believe an illegal ballot was cast. And there are 2 primary reasons those ballots were illegal. The first is that those people no longer met residency requirements for being eligible to cast a ballot in Georgia. The second reason is that they registered from obviously phony addresses, where they would register from a postal box as their residential address, not their mailing address, but this is where I live. They used a postal box, which is illegal in Georgia, clearly illegal, but they disguised those post office boxes. So instead of having a post office box and a number, it was apartment number 321, suite number 5, unit number 17, etc., meant to disguise what it actually was. And when you add those ballots together, it's far more than the margin of victory. We discovered many other anomalies in the state of Georgia as well. People saying that they didn't vote and the state has them marked as voting. People saying that they didn't request absentee ballots and the state saying that they did, and a ballot going out to them, and who knows what ended up happening to it. So those are significant problems, but just the damning thing is the fact that, hey, we got more illegal ballots cast in the margin of victory by a sizable margin.
Matt, we also need to look at Michigan, and I know you've been more than just looking, you've been deep diving into it. You posted a Michigan testimony about what you found there. Tell us what you've seen. I mean, here's the president last night talking about what he saw in Michigan. I want to have you react and tell us what you found, and if you can corroborate from your side of it some of the president's allegations. Play it.
This is Michigan. At 6:31 in the morning, a vote dump of 149,772 votes came in unexpectedly. We were winning by a lot. That batch was received in horror. Nobody knows anything about it. By the way, there's your line. This is one of many. Here's what is normal. And all of a sudden, look at that. This is normal, normal. Look, even here, normal. And then boom, all of a sudden, I go from winning by a lot to losing a tight race. It's corrupt.
Indeed. What did you find, Matt? What can you tell us about Michigan?
Well, I think that what the president raises is, again, another question that demands an answer. Where did that dump come from? It's not that uncommon. I mean, I know that many election nights will see, and I'm sure you've seen this too, where you've got a state where there are a lot of rural areas and maybe urban areas, and sometimes it's the rural areas that are slower to count their votes. So at the beginning of the night, you'll see the Democrat with a big victory, but then as those rural areas report their votes in, the Republican comes back and win, or the other way around, where there's difficulty counting in, possibly something nefarious happening, but in an urban area, and you see the Republican ahead all night, and then the Democrat area comes in all at once, and you see that major shift. So some of it may be attributable, but the answer that needs to be found is, what was that jump? Where did that come from? Does that make sense? Is it justifiable?
What have you found? What have you found in terms of irregularities and fraud as part of the voter integrity project in Michigan specifically?
Well, in Michigan, we found a tremendous number of people who said that they did not request absentee ballots, that they were sent them, or the state said they were sent. In fact, we did one unique analysis in Michigan where we actually called a sample of the entire 3.3 million universe of people who the state said requested absentee ballots, and almost all of them, or most of them, mailed them back. Among that universe, we found almost 13% of those people said they never requested it, which is a huge problem, because requesting an absentee ballot creates an opportunity. If you were to inject ballots into the system, you can't just stuff a ballot box. You have to also have people marked off as having cast the ballot so that they reconcile. So the same number of ballots are counted as people who are marked as having voted. And if you were to run some kind of fraudulent operation, you'd need to offset the number of ballots you injected with people having voted, and perhaps you're requesting absentee ballots in these people's names. That's theoretical. What's not theoretical, though, is that 13% of our sample said we never requested the absentee ballot. We also found, just in a random sample of people we reached out to, 2.8% whom the state said voted said they didn't vote at all. We had many recordings that I played in my presentation on Michigan of people saying, "What are you talking about? I didn't cast a ballot at all." So that is a problem. The other big issue we found in Michigan is a residency. A lot of people casting ballots in the state that don't meet residency requirements. And because I have a very limited access to data, and I had to have a very high confidence to say this person doesn't live in the state anymore, I know that number is significantly higher than the 13,000 that we were able to find with our own little independent, non-governmental efforts.
Is it the same? Your same feeling that in Michigan, that it is likely, based on your data analysis, that there were more illegal votes, because we're talking about over 140, 150,000, more illegal votes possibly cast in Michigan than the margin of victory as well?
I cannot identify a number that reaches that threshold. However, I can identify that number in Wisconsin, Arizona, and Georgia. And without those three states, Joe Biden is not the winner. And that's very troubling, because we're at a point now where I'm not saying that Joe Biden didn't win, but I'm saying that his victory is in doubt, that nobody who honestly reviews the data can say with confidence that he won the election, and that he is the deserved winner. And that's a problem.
Matt, thanks so much for the work you're doing and for sharing your analysis with us. We appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
Almost time for a daily roundup of liberal lunacy from around the interwebs. I don't know why I call it that, but I do. The buckshot's next. Fellow patriots, check out MAGA CBD. It's a revolutionary American-made product that is safe for work, THC-free, and features patented NASA technology, making it the highest quality CBD oil on the market. Dedicated to providing the purest, most effective products on the market, MAGA CBD provides third-party testing results from industry-leading experts. MAGA CBD is 100% committed to customer satisfaction and product quality. Best of all, 10% of proceeds benefit veterans and first responders. For so many people, this helps them with a little bit of sleeplessness. This helps them calm down. Personally, MAGA CBD has made sleeping through the night a lot easier for me, which is something I've struggled with in the past. You can really feel and taste the difference, especially with their apple pie flavored oil. What CBD product on the market could be more American? MAGA, NASA, apple pie. It's America at its finest, my friends. For your CBD needs, look no further than MAGA CBD. Learn more and order today at MAGA CBD, Charlie Bravo Delta, MAGACBD.org, and save 10% with promo code BUCK. That's MAGACBD.org, promo code BUCK. Oh yes, we got to add another Democrat to the Hypocrite Hall of Fame. AOC cashes in on class warfare, and a star is born in Michigan. Line up those clay pigeons. Time for some buckshot. Now, remember, the leadership class, particularly Democrats, they don't want you traveling, they don't want you seeing your family, they don't want you living your life, because if you try, you're going to die or you're going to kill a lot of other people. That's what they tell you. But then they don't act that way, do they? We have this long list: Gavin Newsom, Lori Lightfoot, Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein, Governor Cuomo, Mayor de Blasio. You have this long list, and yet we have to add another name to it. The mayor of Austin, very liberal place, apparently great food, but bad liberal policies. The mayor of Austin, Steve Adler, went down to Mexico and told people in his town, where he's the mayor, stay where you are, don't go anywhere. But he flew private down to Cabo San Lucas. Here's what he had to say. Play it.
Afterwards, a small, mostly family group traveled to Mexico. I want you to know that I regret that travel. I recognize that my travel set a bad example. I recognize that the fact that I took that trip and at the same time was continuing to urge people to be cautious is confusing.
Oh, confusing is one word for it. That's right. Send the peasants, while you're at the hacienda, send the peasants back in the United States your social media reminders about how they need to be terrified and shelter in place. Really, really a classy move. You got to love that. Classy and then sassy. One of the most memorable moments in the very serious Michigan hearings about voter fraud, but this one got a little bit humorous for a second here. I've never seen this lady before, but I think we should all see more of her because she's got some spunk. The star witness of the Michigan hearings presented to you.
The poll book is completely off. Completely off.
Off by 30,000?
I'd say that poll book is off by over 100,000. That poll book, why don't you look at the registered voters on there? How many registered voters are on there? Do you even know the answer to that?
No, I guess I'm trying to get to the bottom of this here.
Zero. There's zero.
So my question then is if the...
Guess how many, wait, what about the turnout rate? 120%?
120%. She was sassy. Great stuff. Honestly, one of the best things I've seen on the internet all week. But another great thing today. AOC, best known for being a Marxist who grew up in an upper middle class suburb of New York City known as Westchester, but pretends to be from the Bronx. She is out there now with a merch store, and she's selling a Tax the Rich sweatshirt for, is it $58 or $68? I don't know. $58. Oh my. Now, I understand that that's maybe the going rate for a designer sweatshirt these days. I have no idea. I like stuff that's old and has holes in it, but nonetheless, tax the rich in your $60 roughly sweatshirt. And then one thing that's kind of funny and sad, emotional support animals. I've always thought it'd be fun to fly Delta with a koala or perhaps hop on United with my peacock. Turns out that you're not going to be able to do that as much anymore. The Transportation Administration or Department of Transportation rather, has said that emotional support animals like a horse, a turkey, a peacock, a pig, I mean, it's so cute though. Don't you want to ride with Wilbur there or, I don't know, Porky or whatever his name is? I mean, and then you got the peacock and beautiful creatures, majestic, flowing robes. So yeah, good things. Turns out you can't actually do that anymore though because it has to be a trained dog and the airlines are going to start cracking down on this. So if you haven't gotten your emotional support pony to ride with you in coach just yet, time's running out. That's it for Hold the Line. No Spin News with Bill O'Reilly is up next. You got to stay for that. Have a great night and shields high.